Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Coming to you from the Pumpkin Patch. I'll be your co-host, Dave Trumbore. Joining me as always, my co-host, Sean, the Pumpkin King Ellis. How's it going, buddy?
David, buddy. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Man, you gotta be super busy over there this time of year, Pumpkin King.
Oh, sure am, Blockhead.
Did I miss something?
What?
Blockhead? Oh, I get
Yeah.
it. I get it. I was going.
Oh my gosh,
I was going Nightmare Before Christmas with the Pumpkin King. I was throwing off the scent. And then Blockhead, for some reason, I was just like, wait, wasn't that from like Gumby? The Blockhead?
Oh, there were the Blockheads that were in Gumby.
Yeah,
correct.
so that's where I went. So my cartoons got crossed and really just screwed me up there for a second.
Yo, you never crossed the
No,
streams,
kids,
bro.
don't get your cartoons crossed. It really messes you up bad. No, Blockhead sounds like, I don't know, like a mid-60s slur that you would call your best friend or something like that, right? If they were being stupid, you just call them Blockhead.
Yeah. Like you're square. Like, that whole be there, be square mentality. Like you've got like a block-shaped head.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I'm pretty sure that is the etymology of that idiom based off of zero research and me not looking anything up on the internet.
Based off of assumptions.
Based off of armchair theories that I just came up with.
And this cartoon we watched, which uses it kind of a lot, I guess. There's a lot of insults kind of slung around, which is surprising. This one, we talked about it last week. I was not a big fan of this growing up. I did not seek it out. I know it's played every year, has been pretty much since 1966. I did not seek it out. I did not watch it a lot. I've maybe seen it like 3 times total in my entire life and was not a big fan. What about you?
I do remember watching this quite frequently. It's been in my youth. I remember watching this quite frequently in my youth. I don't believe that I've watched it for several years. And watching it tonight kind of sparked a debate between me and another guest of the show, Melanie Harker.
Who's not on the show tonight.
And so this was something that I had very distinct opinions about this show, and I had never actually really sat down and sort of, I think Dave and I had actually never really kind of tried to make these thoughts or ideas concrete until this evening. Right. And so it's going to be kind of our job to sort of better articulate some of our thoughts and feelings behind this show and sort of the direction that we feel. But yeah, it was interesting because I was very hopeful going into the cartoon. And then I think maybe by the end of the show tonight, I'm going to say whether or not I felt fulfilled or, kind of
let down
happy,
okay.
With my ability to be able to kind of take in and process this show, or if this was something that, I kind of took a completely different, I don't even, it's hard.
Well, we'll get into it because this is like for the first time, I feel like in 125 episodes that we've actually had more to talk about thematically than just like, hey, let's talk about all the crazy shit that happens in this bonkers cartoon, where it's just like that just gives us enough leeway to talk about like who was making these decisions. This is more like a thematic thing where you can actually have a conversation and discussion about it without actually talking about the plot of the show. So probably not a new direction for us, just a 1 episode departure, most likely, because everything else does not lend itself to a philosophical discussion like Exo Squad.
Right. Yeah, Turbo Teen really leads to the, body dysmorphia and kind of understanding some of the things that people go through.
Should we turn teenagers into hot rods? Discuss.
Yes, 100%.
Next question.
You know why? Kids always want cars. Kids don't want to maintain or be responsible for those cars. Mm-hmm. You make kid a car. You
solve
have
both
them responsible
those
then. Yeah, solve both those problems. Give them a car, make them responsible for the car. Take care of yourself, everybody. That's what I'm trying to do.
Don't buy them a car. Make them a car.
Make them into a car.
Make them into a car. I don't know how many times we have to say it. So you want to give the folks out there some history about what we're actually talking about tonight?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown is a 1966 American primetime animated television special based on the comic strip Peanuts by Charles M. Schulz. The Emmy-nominated Halloween special was the 3rd Peanuts special and 2nd holiday-themed special following A Charlie Brown Christmas. to be produced and animated by Bill Melendez. CBS re-aired the special annually through 2000, with ABC picking up the rights beginning in 2001, where it is now aired annually during the Halloween season. Until 2013, ABC broadcast You're Not Elected, Charlie Brown, which aired immediately after It's a Great Pumpkin, as if to emphasize the proximity of Halloween to Election Day.
Had you heard about that one? I'd never heard of that one.
I had never heard of that one.
And after watching this, I don't know that I want to watch it. The fact that I've never even heard of it probably doesn't bode super well. But maybe this year, because the election's so bonkers, maybe I will watch it.
I think that my problem that I would have with it is because the election is so bonkers, and because Charlie Brown, or the Peanuts comic strip in general, just seems to map a lot of adult content onto children. Yeah. I'd be hesitant to watch it, to see these kids go through what would seem like a democratic process, only to have things not either like fully mature
or have their spirits crushed.
Yeah, it'd just be very. I feel like for Peanuts, it's a world of disappointment.
That was the alternate title originally for the comic strip.
Right, disappointment.
Charles M. Schulz, World of Disappointment.
World of Disappointment. And so I feel like for this world of disappointment, to watch something related to the election so close to this bonker electoral season would just further compound my stress level.
Guys, I think what Sean is trying to say is please go vote and write in Charlie Brown. I'm pretty sure that's 100% what he's saying.
Oh my God, please do not write in Charlie Brown.
So you heard it here first.
There's only one candidate, and there's one candidate only.
Charlie Brown.
It. Charlie Brown.
Downtown Charlie Brown.
Jesus. Weird.
I would actually vote for a cartoon character over the living cartoon characters this season, but that's just me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, pick a cartoon. Nah, we're not going to go through that. I'll be here all night telling you cartoons.
I want to vote for Turbo Teen.
I'll vote Marshall Bravestar.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and Vice President, what was his name? 4040?
Yeah, 4040.
4040? That doesn't sound right for some reason.
Yeah.
Is it 4040? 2020?
Okay. 2020. Guys, we've gone so far down this rabbit hole now at this point. I think we're talking about Peanuts.
I think we're talking Peanuts.
We're definitely talking Peanuts.
I think we're talking Peanuts. And specifically, like Sean mentioned, we're talking It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, because we are still in kind of the throes of, this isn't really, Monster Madness month, but it is obviously Halloween themed, and this is the 50th anniversary of it, so that's kind of a cool thing. Haven't heard much about that on TV, but by the time you guys are hearing this episode, you should be seeing it on TV or have seen it already. So for any folks out there who don't know what this show is about, I'll give you a brief synopsis. With autumn in full swing, the Peanuts gang prepares for Halloween. Linus writes his annual letter to the Great Pumpkin, despite Charlie Brown's disbelief, Snoopy's laughter, Patty's assurance that the Great Pumpkin is a fake, and even his own sister Lucy's violent threat to make her brother stop. Only Sally, Charlie Brown's younger sister, who is smitten with Linus, supports him. That's the crux of it right there. It's pretty much what you need to know. Right. Linus is obsessed with this belief that there's this entity known as the Great Pumpkin, and it is going to spring out of the most sincere pumpkin patch, which he hopes is his, and will then deliver toys to all the boys and girls. And it'll be a fantastic Halloween evening. So he's not doing all the other things that the other kids are doing, like raking leaves and then making costumes and going trick-or-treating and going to a Halloween party. He's sitting his ass in a pumpkin patch.
Right.
Yeah. So, the end. Next time on Saturday Morning Cartoons, we'll be talking. I mean, it's honestly like that's a setup, but it's also like a summary of the entire plot.
Yep.
Yeah. For better and worse. I mean, I know there's people out there who love it, so I will apologize to you guys ahead of time. I do not love this cartoon.
I am also on the same boat that Dave.
Yeah.
I did not enjoy rewatching this.
Twice. I watched it twice today, just to make sure that the first time wasn't like...
Just a glutton for punishment today, aren't
something
you?
Like that. Ugh. I mean, there's fun moments, and we'll talk about... I don't know. Do you want to... Let's talk about this theme song briefly, just get into it like we normally do. So the theme song is a similar theme song to start from what we're used to. So it's like that very familiar kind of just like instrumental, very musical, and you'd know it as soon as you heard it.
Right. I think that the Peanuts theme song is a classic. I think that the second it comes on, Hearing some of the piano music that goes along with it. It's immediately recognizable. Yeah. It's lovely to hear. It's playful. It's fun. It's joyful, which in some cases just seems to be a complete contrast with what the actual cartoon is itself.
Right.
So that like dun 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 dun, dun, like that. It's so fun to hear. Like the second you hear it, you're enthusiastic. I got enthusiastic. I remember all of those scenes from like almost any Peanuts cartoon where all the kids are kind of just dancing.
Yeah, exactly.
And it looks like they're just kind of like standing there, just like moving their heads back and forth and their legs and not actually moving anywhere because it was too expensive to actually animate that process.
Exactly.
And so it made me think of like things like that, which I know is from another Charlie Brown cartoon, but it just made me happy to hear and see that music and have that memory. But none of that happens in this cartoon. None of that happens in this specific Great Pumpkin cartoon, which is so disappointing because it seems like such a universally classic moment for all of Peanuts, that you would have a dance moment in something like this, right. That you would have that moment
of joy
where you would have of joy or just excitement or just these kids just being kids and dancing like we've seen, what are these like anywhere between like 6, 7, 8-year-old kids?
I think they're somewhere around there. They're like a little younger than South Park age, I guess.
And so they're sort of joyful dancing and they're very carefree and they don't feel like they have any problems. And then it just felt like everything that happened in this cartoon was them having adult problems over and over and over again.
Well,
to the point where I was like, I'm an adult and I don't even have those problems. And now I'm concerned.
You're a conscientious adult at this point, watching a cartoon about adults with kid voices. I'll say, just sticking on the theme song here, it does have that main Peanuts theme, just to be like, this is a Peanuts cartoon. But then it quickly just turns into like a kind of spooky alternate version of that with just like silly Halloween stuff. So there's like witches flying around and owls coming out of the screen and bats kind of chasing the kids in costume around. So it's just kind of like, hey, it's a Peanuts cartoon, but it's a spooky Halloween episode. But nothing spooky happens after that. That's literally the only thing that's spooky. That's literally it. I mean, there's more like military drama and action in this piece than there is anything else spooky for a section of it. So to call it a Halloween special, it's weird because this thing is like, it's played every Halloween. It obviously centers on Halloween, but it almost has nothing to do with Halloween except that it's made up its own mythology.
Correct.
And I find that interesting, but also kind of like, maybe that's why I didn't really want anything to do with it when I was a kid.
Okay. May we get into that portion of it?
Yeah, we're not going to discuss kind of the beat by beat unless it pertains to what we're talking about kind of thematically tonight.
Sure. Yeah. So the whole idea of this Great Pumpkin is a concept and a construct that Linus introduces to the rest of the group, which, it seems as if, and correct me if you feel different about this, Dave, but it felt like Linus understands that there is a Santa Claus in this universe, but he understands that Santa Claus is fake.
Well, I
had that impression.
I would say that he doesn't necessarily say that Santa Claus is fake. I would say that he equates his belief with the Great Pumpkin with Charlie Brown and probably everyone else's belief in Santa Claus. Because there's a line where when Linus is writing his letter to the Great Pumpkin and Charlie Brown's like, I don't believe that you believe in this stuff. And he's like, well, you happen to believe in a guy in Santa Claus who flies around at Christmas time handing presents. This is the same thing. It's just like a Halloween theme. So to me, he doesn't necessarily not believe in that. He just has an additional belief that there's this Great Pumpkin thing flying around.
Right. And so I think the word that you hit on here is the most important, is belief. Right. Like he has this specific belief in something that is happening. Right. That he has an expectation. He has this belief in this thing that if he is sincere enough.
Yeah, and if his pumpkin patch is sincere enough. Both of those things are important because both of them are stressed.
And so if he is sincere enough, if his pumpkin patch is sincere enough, then he will be visited by the Great Pumpkin. Right. And so this sort of seemed like it could almost be a religious parable.
Oh, 100%.
In a sense, where Linus has this belief, his faith is tested, and and you sort of go on that journey with him.
Yeah.
Is this kind of to sidebar, is this the normal hero's journey where something happens that changes him? I would kind of disagree with that, because you're sort of set in this trajectory where, he's introducing this new lore.
Right. Which is really interesting because...
It's very interesting.
Because where does it come from?
Yeah, exactly.
There's no parents around, so we can continue with our theme of dead kids for the month, that these kids might as well be in purgatory, because they don't grow, they don't apparently mature, they don't have any... They have things that hand out candy, but you never see them. So either they're just like robot humans, or they are parents, you just never hear or see them.
I just figured that the person handing out the candy was Ed, and Eddie.
Oh, that makes sense. Handing out just jawbreakers and rocks
in child purgatory.
Yeah, exactly.
Just handing everything out.
It's actually just Ed and Eddie just stacked on top of each other in an overcoat.
Right.
Yeah, just handing out candy. But no, the point with that was that we don't know where this came from. Right. I mean, obviously it came from Schulz because he kind of made the whole thing up, but we don't know where Linus got it from. We don't know if he just made it up from whole cloth and has been doing this since he was a kid. We don't know if before he died, his parents told him this story, and he's... The point is, we don't know where it came from. He says it, he believes it, and everybody else is so familiar with it that they're like, oh, what's that about? Except for, I think, maybe Sally is hearing about it for the first time.
Yeah, it seems like Sally is kind of being introduced to this lore for the first time, and she's a little bit hesitant, but she's in love with him. She's in love with Linus, and so love is a beautiful and very dangerous thing.
Yeah,
because she will kind of follow him to the ends of all of this, in order to see it, and she has her doubts.
Right.
Linus has his doubts. And ultimately, there's sort of what kind of felt to me like a half-hearted reveal with them sort of in this pumpkin patch at midnight, with sort of what ends up transpiring.
Right.
That it doesn't really have a conclusion.
Right.
To me. That it felt like a great story and a great lore and something very fun to introduce that is not supported by any of the other children in any way whatsoever. I would have been more interested to see what the great pumpkin celebration aspect and focus was for all of this. It would have been infinitely more enjoyable. It would have been something that it would have really kind of given these kids like a fun world and environment to play with, something that, possibly could have been created, since this is sort of like an American hallmark, this cartoon. Right. It could have been something that could have been coupled or sort of attached to Halloween.
It would have been commercialized to hell and back if this actually had like a ceremony or something with it. But then on the flip side of that, it would not be sort of this faith allegory.
And so
that's the flip that you have.
And so this whole faith allegory that they have with Linus and him kind of understanding it, like I think, and this sort of maybe boils down to what my core problem is with the Peanuts cartoon, like the Peanuts animated cartoons. Right. Because we need to make it very clear that this is not the insular little nugget that you get in the Sunday funnies. Right. This is a 25-minute cartoon that is using these children who shit on each other constantly to explore this crisis of faith regarding this really interesting lore that we don't have any idea of where it comes from. Right. And so it doesn't feel like the story has any resolution, which maybe that's part of the argument for people who are faithful, is that there really is never any resolution. There is, like, you're faithful because you believe that. That's your core belief, and you have that. That's instilled in you, which is fine. But in terms of a fun child story, it's not, it doesn't leave you with a warm fuzzy at the end. He almost freezes to death in this pumpkin patch.
Well, and that's the other thing, because he has got no parents around to like take care of him. Can we just pull back a little bit? I want to get into the faith argument, but I want to knock out some sort of foundational arguments for our approach to the cartoon before we do. So
let's do it.
Let's just pull back and look at Peanuts as an animated cartoon, not necessarily this specific cartoon, but just in general. So basically, Sunday funnies, two-dimensional, you read it in your own voice, versus the animated color version where it's a bunch of kids' voices that are saying very like adult dialogue.
Correct.
I love the funnies. I love the artwork. I love the character design, even though it's bizarre because it's a bunch of like large babies running around. Basically, they like Charlie Brown is one of the weirdest looking kids you've ever seen. A little curly Q hair, and that's about it. Weird. He's a weird kid. Some of them are okay, but they're all kind of like lumpy potato kids.
If you're looking for me to disagree with
no,
you
no,
on
no,
whether
I'm just getting that out
he's
of the
a
way.
weird kid and Linus is a weird. They have. I always thought to myself like, oh dear God, don't let me turn into one of those Peanuts kids
just
in
get,
terms
like,
of my hairline.
Well, that or your skull.
And I am turning to just have as spindly of wiry hair.
You're
that
not an
Linus
8-year-old.
Yeah, I'm not an 8-year-old.
No,
I'm 36 years old, but he's got like spider legs for hair.
Yeah, and then when he gets like scared or she shouts at him, it kind of just like creeps out.
It freaks
but
out.
But again, that's the reason that I like the design in the comics, because there it's just like it's line drawings. It's very simplistic. It's minimalist. I like it. It was probably super easy for him to draw. Animated, that just gets weird because the hair does weird things and their heads do weird lumpy movements. It's weird to me. It's just a weird animation. And then the voice acting. So when you're reading the comics, you read them in your own voice. So even if you give these characters different voices or you just read it in your own voice, that's always going to be kind of your first go-to. So when you see this on screen and it's not your voice, that's already kind of like, it's a weird thing. Because you'd spent so much time reading these comics and getting to know these characters and their stories and their dialogue, and you hear, oh, good grief, you hear that in your own voice. And then to hear it in this weird kid's voice, it's just, there's some kind of weird disconnect for me. And that's always been my problem, I think, with the Peanuts cartoon.
No, I agree. Yeah. It's, I think one of the strongest arguments that I can think of or that I can make for all of this is that when I think of one of my favorite cartoons from when I was a child was Calvin and Hobbes, and Bill Watterson never animated any of the Calvin and Hobbes series, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Because every time you read that as your childhood self. Right. You read that as with the whimsy and the sort of the childlike desire that you had as a kid during that point in your life. And to read those now, it always takes me back. It makes me extremely nostalgic. For Peanuts, I feel like there is still that imagination that's there. That sort of imaginative approach that they have, but the way that these kids interact with each other, is completely unsupportive from start to finish.
Well, I like it in the comic version because there is something funny about seeing they're supposed to be little kids, but they're speaking in kind of a highfalutin dialogue that's more appropriate for adults, and they're doing weird things like signing contracts and having these philosophical arguments with each other. That, to me, there's something simple and elegant about that. In a comic version, there's something weird about hearing it almost like a weird drama teacher is putting on a play with his kindergarten class, and like he's just like, learn this line, doesn't matter if you know what it means or not. It's just, there's something that just rings odd and off about the animated versions to me. Always has, probably always will.
I think one of maybe the best examples is sort of Lucy with her 5-cent therapist office. In the individual cartoon setting, that is very enjoyable because it's a little bite, but I don't want a full meal of that. Right. I don't want to sit down and have a 7-course meal of that in any way, shape, or form. Right. I just want the small bite, and that's it. And I'm satisfied with that. I walk away, I'm happy. I agree with you, Dave. Like, in that distilled moment, it's fun. Anything beyond that for me regarding Peanuts is just, it feels like it's just too much.
See, no, that's a good segue because you can tell from watching It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, that they have this core story, but that wasn't enough to fill out, because nothing happens, spoiler alert, it wasn't enough to fill out their 25 minutes. So they are like, oh, well, what do Peanuts fans really want to see? They want to see Lucy pull the football from Charlie Brown, and he falls on his ass. Okay, fine, funny. You see it coming. You don't know how it's going to play out, but it plays out, and it's fine. They have like these weird little, they're kind of connected just because they exist within like the childhood, their time together, but they're just kind of like weird segments. That and like everything with Snoopy we can talk about.
You get these, and just to go with these like these really bite-sized moments that you're talking about, we have sort of the Linus and Charlie Brown sort of standing in front of like a brick wall, kind of lamenting about, some things like at the very end. We have Pigpen trying to disguise himself, and they're just like, how'd you know it was me? Well, you've got like a fart trail that follows you everywhere.
Covered in a swarm of gnats.
Like, of course we know it's you. Like,
but that was it. Like, he only shows up for that recognition moment for people to be like, oh, it's Pigpen, and then they're like, he's relegated to like, I don't even know if he was still in the group. But he like
no idea
doesn't show up again.
You have Schroeder playing the piano at one point. And you have Snoopy kind of going on this World War I pilot.
Can we talk about that? Because that and with Schroeder has nothing to do with anything else except to be like, here's a funny little side story for Snoopy, and we're going to bring Schroeder in because we don't have anything else to do with him.
Right.
So while everybody's kind of dressing up and doing their own thing, most of them are like ghosts or witches with just like a mask on. Snoopy has his little like aviator goggles on, his beanie, and his scarf, and like his weird. It's not a cane. It's like a wand. Like a
yeah.
Was it MacArthur? Did MacArthur used to have that to like a conductor's baton to like point around, and then he would tuck it under his armpit as he walked?
I believe so. Yeah.
Regardless of whoever it was, so Snoopy at this point is the World War I flying ace. So we have this weird segment that just goes on for a really long time, where he climbs up on top of his... This is all just by himself. Nobody's with him. There's no Woodstock. Charlie Brown's not with him. Everybody's out.
Charlie Brown is narrating during this point. Because
he narrates like when he climbs onto the...
where he said... Where he like... It seems like Snoopy is about to speak.
Right.
And he opens his mouth, and you can see them animate what that word would have been, but it's filled in by Charlie Brown. Okay. Like, all the exposition at that point is filled in by Charlie Brown.
And there's not too much. He basically just says, here's the World War I flying ace getting into his Sopwith camel to go on another dawn patrol and look for the Red Baron. You're like, okay, that's sure, whatever. So it's just Snoopy sitting on top of his doghouse, and then there's like this crazy kind of animated dogfight that's all in his imagination. He crash lands. Yeah, go ahead.
But that can be fun.
Yeah, it was like, fun. It was just weird.
That imaginative component of Peanuts is fun, you know? And it seemed like in that instance, which is sometimes why I have such a hard time with this, is that this is a dog who's like, I'm a World War I pilot, and nobody says to him, that's a dumb fucking idea. But then a human being is like, I believe in a great pumpkin, and immediately they're just like, you're a dumb fucking idiot.
To the point that they form a line to come in and tell him one by one how stupid he is.
Yeah, how dumb he is for
cruel.
this.
They literally lined up and just be like, you're a fucking moron.
Guys,
I don't know if they said that, but pretty close.
Charles M. Schulz was like the world's first bully. I'm pretty sure that he was like, you know what? I'm just going to see if I can bully the hell out of this kid. Like, it's ridiculous how mean these kids are. And yes, you know what? When you were a kid, were you mean? Yeah, absolutely. Totally. You probably were. If you have children right now, are your kids mean? Yes, absolutely.
They're little jerks.
We're garbage people to each other in this landfill that we live in. And so, like, I get that. It's there, but fuck, like, I want a little bit of a reprieve from that when I watch a cartoon.
Yeah, that's why we do this.
I don't want to be reminded.
That's why we've watched 60 plus hours of stupid cartoon.
God
to
damn
not
it.
think about life. That's why we hope you join us for like an hour each week to just get away from life for a minute. But not tonight. So he's on this trip, and I mean, and that's fine. That would have been enough if he like had a fight against the Red Baron, like the song, or you know, if he was just flying around and then he crash landed and then went back to the party. Fine. No, he has to crash land behind enemy lines. He has to spend a fairly extended sequence walking through like the French countryside in order to get to safety, passing like way markers and mile markers, and climbing through trenches and swimming across rivers. And I'm just like, all right, I guess. And then eventually he gets back to the party. There's a kind of funny thing that happens with Lucy, but then there's a bizarre thing that they continue this World War I theme with Schroeder. And I went and looked this up because I didn't know if they had made these songs up for the cartoon or if these were actual songs. So these are actual World War I songs. The quote unquote happy songs and he did make me laugh a couple times. When Schroeder plays a happy song, Snoopy's kind of like marching in place, and he even does this kind of like weird like showgirl thing where he just kind of like looks at the camera and just like waggles his eyebrows.
He is cheesing so
super
hard
at that point, but
that stuff is fun.
That's fun. It's just weird because it went on so long. So he alternates between a happy song where Snoopy's marching and smiling and a sad song where he's basically like crying like a train wreck. Like he's like that beagle cry, that like weird cartoon Snoopy cry.
Yeah.
So the happy songs are called "It's a Long Way to Tipperary." You've probably heard that one.
Yes.
And the other one is "Pack Up Your Troubles in Your Old Kit Bag." And you probably know that one if you hear it. The sad songs were "There's a Long, Long Trail" and "Roses of Picardy" or Picardy. So I don't know, but they're World War I song. And it's just like a weird thing to stuff into this.
World War I wasn't so hard to say.
Yeah, especially after drinking a little bit. World War I. WW1.
WW Uno.
Yeah, the Great War. It's just a weird thing to cram in here, though. Now, we should say that Schulz was a veteran of World War II, and that was something that kind of like opened his eyes a little bit and may have affected, stories later on. So this is just like an interesting thing. Maybe he just became a historian afterwards and just thought it would be funny that Snoopy was a flying ace. I have no idea. It has nothing to do with the Great Pumpkin. Has nothing to do with Halloween except playing dress up. And has nothing to do with anything else except getting Schroeder a chance to, play on his piano for a few minutes.
Right.
It was fine, but then that was pretty much it. Snoopy does have one more role to play in this, but we need to backtrack a little bit to talk more about. You want to focus on Linus?
You want to focus on trick-or-treating
You want to talk trick-or-treat? Sure.
Let's talk trick-or-treating for a moment. So, there is one very supportive moment in this entire cartoon, which is a beautiful little brother-sister moment that we have with Sally, right, where she asks the question, makes the request, am I able to go trick-or-treating with everybody?
She's very cute. She's precocious. And she's the definition of the word precocious.
That is perfect. And so she makes the ask, which is hard, I think, for a lot of children to just be like, may I be included? Right. She makes this ask.
Because she's younger than everybody else, too. Yeah.
Correct. She is accepted into everything that is going on. And so they tell her, like, you can go. You can trick-or-treat with us this year.
And she's like, how does that work?
Yeah. And so they explain to her, they're like, you go up to a house and you say tricks or treats. Right. Which... Dave,
no, that was weird to me.
That was very weird to me. Okay, thank you.
Tricks or treats.
It was very weird to me. Tricks or treats? I've never done that. I've said trick or treat. Or I've thrown toilet paper and eggs at people's houses.
We used to do tic-tac, and I think I've told you about this before. Tic-tacking, do you remember?
Oh, yeah, that's
right.
Where
you throw, like, dry corn at people's windows. And it makes a real creepy sound, and they investigate, and you just run like hell. The end. Simple fun. Nobody gets hurt.
Did you ever do anything, like, really terrible?
For Halloween, never did eggs, never did TP, never broke anything. No, it really didn't. I mean, honestly, you'd probably get shot in our neighborhood if you did something real bad. So, just a lot of tic-tacking. That's about it.
We used to do toilet paper. People would throw eggs at one another. There was a shaving cream, like the gel shaving cream that shoots really far. I one year found a fire extinguisher at somebody's house and sprayed people with fire extinguisher, which is not good to have on your person.
Terrible idea.
Especially because I began running after people trying to spray it, and I would spray it in front of me, and then I ran right through it myself.
And then put the fire extinguisher back for someone to use.
No, I just threw it away. Good. I was at least intelligent enough to
get away with the evidence, yeah.
Yeah, I think one year my favorite was somebody threw a potato at me.
No, I think the closest we'd get to that is like the rotten pumpkins at the end of the day. Like you might, if you're walking along, you might pick that up and throw that. But I don't even think we did that because I was the one that had to, when stupid kids would do that on my street, I was the one that had to go out and clean up the rotten ass pumpkin that was splattered all over the place.
I remember one year distinctly, a friend's mom called all of the moms in the neighborhood because we had evidently had like a huge egg, toilet paper, pumpkin, potato fight. Outside of their place, and we had to all go out the next day with other people's their lawn hoses, and we had to spray down the street and push everything like into the gutter because it was just like it was a mess.
I'm sure it was. Shitty kids. Kids are shitty.
12 again.
No, I never did that. I remember once we were trick or treating. I was at my dad's house, and he was, it was just him and me and my brother, and my brother and I are about 6 years apart. So. We
talk about Andrew?
Talking about Andrew, not Andy.
Talk about
Andrew.
Not
Andy. Don't make that mistake.
Didn't say it.
Find yourself murt in the bed. So we're out trick-or-treating. He's taking us around. And my dad left a giant bowl of candy out on the porch with a big sign and the porch light on, and it says honor system, take 2-3 pieces and leave the rest for everybody else. He's like, everybody can take 2-3 pieces, leave the rest for everybody else. So we're walking down the street, and we didn't get like 2 houses down, and we passed these other like younger teenagers coming up. And my dad he kind of said it under his breath, but also kind of to us at the same time, which was a really weird kind of way to do it. Because he wasn't like talking to us, but he was like narrating like something was happening in like a TV show. And he's like, you know what? If anybody's going to fuck with that candy, it's going to be those kids. And I was just like, are you talking to me? Because I was like 12 at the time. I was like, are we in on this together? Like, is shit going down? What's happening? I need to be. So it's actually super cool what we did. We circled back through the woods because our house was in like a wooded development.
Ooh.
We circled back through the woods and we're real quiet and waited for these kids to come to our porch. And sure enough, 2 of them like made a beeline for the candy and just started like shoving it into their bags. My dad came roaring out of the woods, scared the shit out of these kids, but to the point that they were just like frozen still. They were just like, with like handfuls of candy. And he was like, and then he got real quiet, which is, dad voice. When they get like real quiet, that's scary.
No.
So me and my brother were kind of like back by the tree. He's like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. And he was like, you 3 empty all your bags back into that bowl. And they were like, no, but we already got candy early. He's like, I don't care. You saw the sign and you decided to be little shits. So now empty your bags in the bowl. And the one kid was like, I swear, mister, I didn't take anything. And he was like, all right, you can take a couple of pieces, but you 2 empty your bags and get the hell out of here. It was great.
Holy shit.
It was great. And we didn't I don't think we got papered after that, which is really weird. You would expect like to be papered after that.
Did you explain to your dad that he had set or at least adhered to the gold star standard of laziness in Halloween candy distribution?
It was more like he wanted to be a nice guy and put candy out for people, but he also had to take me and my brother trick-or-treating. I couldn't have been 12. I had to be way younger than that, because otherwise I would have just taken him around. Yeah, he had to take us around. So there was nobody else there.
Man.
But that was pretty cool. Pretty cool. And then nobody touched that candy bowl the rest of the night, so we came back and gorged on it. Good times.
Oh, God.
But guess what wasn't good times? Watching these kids go around and trick-or-treat.
And why wasn't that a good time,
Well, it was a good time for some of them. They got like, I got a chocolate bar. I got a popcorn ball. Sucks for you. I got a quarter. Sucks for you. Even though a quarter back in 1966 was probably pretty decent.
Oh, I got a rock.
I got a rock. Charlie Brown.
Thanks, Charlie
Rule
Brown.
of 3. Charlie Brown get a rock 3 times. And guess what? Here's a shitty thing. Just like those kids learned that Halloween night, maybe like share with other people. If you, me, and our friends are going out trick-or-treating, and for whatever reason one of us kept getting a rock, which is weird that multiple people in purgatory would hand out rocks, I would be like, dude, that's really weird. So here's like some candy from me. Here's some candy from, our other friends. Like, we can each give up a few pieces of candy for you to have not a bag of rocks by the time you get home.
Yeah, right? So here's my concern. Is back in 1966, who watched this and then was like, wait, can I throw rocks at kids?
I'm sure some people were.
Like, what Halloween in 1966 and 67 were like kids just stoned in a cul-de-sac?
Well, it was, up until that point, they were like, I guess I have to give like potato candy or like whatever I got laying around. Boiled peanuts, whatever. And then in 66, they were like, I can throw rocks at kids and they won't come around taking my sweet, sweet witch candy. And then in 1978, when Halloween came out, you could just start murdering kids. So it was a logical progression, but we weren't quite there yet. What was interesting, actually, was so many people were upset in the real world. So many people were upset with Charlie Brown only getting rocks for trick-or-treat that they sent Schulz bags of candy that said, this is just for Charlie Brown. So that's kind of cute. Like, people from all over the world were like, this candy's for Charlie Brown. I'm sure he had a shitload. But it's kind of a cute story.
That is kind of fun. I do like that.
Way cuter than what actually happens in the cartoon. Because they don't do that.
Yeah. Because they don't do that at all. In fact, at the end or the conclusion of their Halloween expedition, they decide that they're all going to go over to a Halloween party.
Yeah, Violet's throwing a party.
Okay. Which, first and foremost, Charlie Brown, pretty smitten with this Violet character.
Yeah, and he got invited.
And he did a
little dance.
Immediately, Lucy was like, no, that's wrong. There were 2 piles of invitations. Yeah. One that should have gone to people saying you should come to the party, and one to people who said that you should not be coming to the
what
party.
A shitty kid.
You got the wrong pile, Charlie Brown. You shouldn't come to this. Nobody wants you.
You
there.
basically got like the wedding
what
announcement.
The fuck?
You got the wedding announcement, which means you're supposed to send a gift, but you're not invited to the wedding. So please send a gift, but please do not show up. Is essentially what Lucy was saying. She's a real brat.
I'm surprised he didn't just throw those rocks right through the window of that
Charlie
house.
should just hold on to Halloween rocks year after year. Yeah.
Just a rock party with that pillowcase full of stones.
Just come out swinging.
Yeah.
So they go to the party, and it looks like there's going to be like a moment of like redemption and kind of like joy, right? For Charlie Brown.
Yes.
For 1 second.
No.
1 second.
It doesn't happen for like 2 seconds.
They're like, it's like all the girls, and there's like a pumpkin on the table, and they're like, all the girls are like, Charlie Brown, you should be our model. And he gets like all flustered. He's like, oh, finally, someone's recognizing my handsome features of this cue ball head with a curly cue pig's tail coming out of my forehead.
Right.
And then they do something pretty shitty where they use the back of his head as like a template for drawing the pattern of a jack-o'-lantern that they're going to cut. So they just essentially draw another jack-o'-lantern face on the back of his big bald head. He's not super thrilled with that.
And I love I love to hate the fact that his reaction ultimately is just sort of that like flat face emoji that is just sort of like with the thin lip. It's just like,
but like red face too. He's not thrilled.
Yeah,
but that's pretty much the end of things for Charlie Brown. I mean, except for the very last scene. Correct. I mean, star of the show doesn't really do anything.
Let me talk about these 2 other nuggets that are in here.
Let's talk about nuggets.
That are, again, they're either extremely demeaning towards women or they're progressive towards women.
Okie dokie. Oh, okay. I know one. Yeah.
So we have a moment where Lucy is about to bob for apples. Okay. And she's like, oh, great. Bobbing for apples. And somebody, like, off camera, like, somebody just goes, oh, Lucy, you'll be great for this. You've got the perfect mouth for it. And you're like, what?
That one I'm okay with. She does have a big mouth. She's kind of a brat.
Yeah, she's a big mouth.
That's desserts right there.
It's a creepy comment.
It is for kids without parents to make.
Yes.
But I took it as just like she's got a big mouth, and that was fine. And hopefully it was Charlie Brown, and he just like he's just
off in the corner. He's like, bam, got you.
I hope he just
Lucy.
ran after that. Actually, he's like, that was a good one. She's gonna whoop my ass. I better get out of here.
Yeah. Just built a house with those stones and just barricaded himself inside.
Just chuck them at her head when she comes by.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah, well, 1966.
But then, the second part that we have is this one line where it is between Sally and Linus, where there's a conversation that is going back and forth, and Linus makes the comment. He goes, I just thought that young girls would accept or understand everything that's said to them. And Sally has a great response. She's just like, no, that's not the case. Welcome to the 20th century, dummy. And just sort of like puts the kibosh on it there. And to me, I was like, that's great. Like he had a moderately sexist remark towards young women, and then it is immediately shot down like succinctly, like sniper-like precision.
See, and I like that too, because this will lead into our next topic, which will probably close out the conversation for tonight. But I like that she said it that way, because it also lets you know that this whole time that she's been sitting with Linus was not because she's buying his bullshit about the Great Pumpkin or really even cares about it quite that much. Like, it'd be a cool thing if it happened that she could share with him. She just wants to spend time with him because she likes him. So she's not, 80% of it is that she likes Linus and just wants to spend time with him, even though she says, like, if you try to hold my hand, I'll knock your block off or whatever. I'll slug you.
Right.
But there's like 20% that maybe she could be swayed to believe in the Great Pumpkin. That blows up terribly at the end. I will say, before we get into this faith kind of discussion, Sally has a great line earlier on, which kind of defines how precocious she is, when she's asking about the method and the manner of tricks or treats. And she's like, Lucy says, you go around, you knock on the doors, and then you get candy. And she's like, is it legal? And Lucy's like,
That's
yeah,
right.
Of course it's legal. And she's like, I'm glad to hear that it's legal. I wouldn't want to be accused of taking part in a rumble. And I was just like, what is that? What are you saying? That's so cute.
Taking part in a rumble. In a rumble.
Yeah. So that was super cute. But it's, again, a weird example of like kids that are cute saying dialogue that's written just weird. It's just weird dialogue.
Yeah. I think it's just it's weirdly adult, weirdly adult dialogue mapped onto a children, and that is a relatively standard trope of having like young, intelligent child who provides context and exposition for the adults. The only problem is that in this case there are no fucking adults. So who were they actually convincing or educating or giving a self-realization to? Nobody. It's just nobody's there to hear.
Right. Even in like South Park,
these things are said. Yeah.
Even in South Park, these kids, they can be alternately shitty to each other, they can be friendly to each other, and they can be wildly imaginative and also very mature and philosophical at the same time. Usually in contrast to the adults who are the complete opposite of anything mature or rational or normal. The adults are usually the bonkers ones. And the kids are kind of like, obviously, Stone and Parker. But you don't have that for Peanuts. You just have kids being older than they should be, but also being shitty to each other. And nobody really learns anything. And there's no recourse for anything, but also nothing good happens. So I don't know why people love this one so much. I don't get it. But we'll get into I think it's time to get into the big question here.
Yeah, let's get into this final philosophical question for this
There's
cartoon.
A lot that can be unpacked here, and I don't know which way the show creators and writers want you. I don't know which way they would come out of this thinking. I don't know if they are pro-faith and have drawn this up to be like, if you believe in something, then no matter what happens, you still believe in it. It doesn't, because a thing doesn't happen the way you want it to happen, doesn't take away from your faith. Sometimes it can strengthen it. Or they could be saying, sometimes people's beliefs are so ludicrous and based on nothing that even when they don't come true, people want to believe so much in something that doesn't exist that they just make excuses for why it didn't work out the way it did. I don't know which side of the coin they're kind of on. Maybe both. Maybe they left it ambiguous so that we would have discussions like this of like, is faith something that will always be tested but never proven out? Or is faith something that is based on nothing and ultimately is a self-fulfilling prophecy?
So I kind of approached it initially from the idea of what's important to me. Like what's important to Sean Ellis, like the viewer on this. And I think that that's hard because I think that it is written, as you mentioned, in such an ambiguous way that everybody can take away the message that they need, that they have to have. I'm not a religious person. I'm not a faithful person in terms of the religious angle and aspect of it. And so for me, it was something where, you know, you're introduced to this idea, this belief that Linus has. And I think because I've seen a lot of friends and family that are around me that do have faith, that do have a belief structure in something that is extremely important to them. And I think what's nice is that I'm old and I'm mature enough now where I'm able to have that adult conversation with them and say, I understand what your beliefs are. I understand what your beliefs are, but it's not, I don't share them. And it's not important to me, and it should be important to you. If it's something that you have, if it's something that you want to carry, you should have that ability. You should have that freedom of choice. That should be what you want. And I think what was hard, and I think what I'm coming to realize now, is that watching Linus go through that process of not being able to have that educated philosophical conversation with a group of peers was very challenging for me, because ultimately I wanted him to be able to believe in the Great Pumpkin.
Exactly.
In fact, I wanted him to be rewarded by the Great Pumpkin. You know, I wanted that Great Pumpkin to show up and shower him with gifts, and I wanted him to be happy and ultimately satisfied with the journey and the belief that he had. Do I share that? Fuck no. Like, absolutely not. There's no such thing as a Great Pumpkin.
Just to be clear, we are recording this in the middle of a pumpkin patch right now because I made Sean come out and sit tonight to hope that the Great Pumpkin does show up. So we are in the middle. So it sounds like I'm not really paying attention, it's just because I'm looking around to make sure like everything is super sincere, that there's no signs of hypocrisy, that I say when the Great Pumpkin shows up and not if the Great Pumpkin shows up. I'm trying to stay positive about stuff.
I'm glad that I'm here, but I'm also a little bit disappointed
it's also freezing
in you
out
in the
here.
fact it's freezing, and you brought one fucking Snuggie.
Yeah, it's mine,
and it is
and
cold.
it's mine, and we're both in it.
But I ultimately what I think that I wanted was I wanted Linus to be satisfied. Right. He was one person who, because of his belief, because of his stance that he was taking on this, and the level of concern with other people, he was in no way, shape, or form was he that dick family member on Facebook that is just like, believe in my thing, otherwise I'm gonna unfriend you because I don't want to fucking talk about shit in an actual adult manner. Reblog. That's how Facebook works.
Well,
right?
and like when he said to Charlie Brown about Santa Claus, he was trying to, like, on that same level, be like, look, I'm not giving you shit about Santa Claus. This is my thing.
And I wanted him to be, because he was so kind, sincere, and respectful of everybody else, I wanted him to get the thing that he wanted. I wanted him to go in that direction. I wanted him to have some satisfaction. And the challenge that I think that I'm ultimately having with this is that it was never given to him. He was disappointed from start to finish. He was criticized. He was made fun of. And again, if you have that belief, if that's a core value of yours, if it's something that you want to carry with you, you should do that. I don't have any problem with that. I don't feel the same way, but that's okay, because you know what? Linus never expected me to be that way. If I wanted to join him, he's wholeheartedly accepting of that. In fact, he'll spend the time and he'll be considerate of everything that's going on.
And he'll talk about it so much that the word pumpkin begins to sound really strange. He says
it does.
Pumpkin,
it was very hard to hear.
So many times. But here, and at the risk of going on a rant here too, there are so many things that happened to Linus and didn't happen for Linus that were so frustrating in the rest of this thing. Like you said, nobody supported him except for Sally, and she only did about 99% of the way there. So she was the one that basically was like, this sounds cool, but if it doesn't prove out the way you said it did within like the 24 hours that I've known about this thing, then I'm out, and I'm going to hate you for it, and I demand restitution, and I'm going to sue you, and I'm never going to come back and do this again, and you wasted my night, and I got to wait another year for Halloween, and blah, blah, blah. So you got that. So like the one person who looked like maybe was kind of like believing in him and believing in something else was not. She just wanted to spend time with him. That's not the worst thing. The fact that like all of his friends not only didn't believe him, but ridiculed him. And then at the end, when Charlie Brown and Linus are kind of talking, he was like, well, Charlie's like, I got rocks for trick or treat, and you didn't see the great pumpkin again. Linus is like, well, maybe next year. Charlie's like, you know what? It's okay. I did dumb things when I was a kid too. And that sets Linus off, because he wasn't just like, hey man, sorry great pumpkin didn't show up. I know you were really looking forward to it. I hope he shows up for you next year. Because that could be Charlie Brown saying, like you were saying, Sean, that could be Charlie Brown saying, like, look, I don't share this belief. I think it's a little strange, but if it works for you, cool, man, I wish you the best. And I hope that it works out well. Instead, he was just like, you're being real dumb, so hopefully you'll smarten up by next year. And then, to make matters worse, faith is, and this is something that I've struggled with and I continue to struggle with, and is like has become a very personal thing for me for a number of reasons. Faith is supposed to be something that like gets you through the day, gets you through life, gets you to something beyond, something bigger, something more than just like our mortal existence here. And for me, that doesn't really work, but I'm trying. And for Linus, that's what it was supposed to be. The faith and the belief and this whole lore that he's built up, and the whole ceremony of writing the letter and picking out the perfect pumpkin patch and making it sincere and keeping it from being hypocritical and having that belief throughout the night was supposed to give him joy. In the end, it clearly didn't, because we closed this whole thing out with him ranting over the credits about how he's, Charlie Brown is going to be sorry next year when the Great Pumpkin shows up, and how he's going to do this all again next year. And he didn't care that he missed trick or treat. He didn't care that he missed that costume party. He doesn't care that he's missing out on a childhood with all of his friends, even if they're in purgatory. He doesn't care that he's missing out on all these social experiences, because his belief is like the most important thing to him at this particular time. And it doesn't matter if it's fulfilled or not, because like any good cult leader, they will always find a way out of any sort of prediction if it doesn't quite come true. And it was just such a deflating moment that I don't know which side of the debate you're supposed to fall on here.
Yeah.
He's such a pariah for this thing that for the length of this episode, I don't know if he was like supposed to be an allegory for like followers of Christ back in the day, or if he's supposed to be an allegory for someone who's trying to follow something different now in a time where Christianity is, one of the major religions, if not the major religion of the world. I don't know where that fits. Right. And I don't know what they're trying to say. But I'm glad we can have this conversation.
Yeah. And I think it's important. I think it's important to have the conversation to at least understand sort of where it is. And I think it's also, I think it's important to sort of, in a day, in a time where, there's so much conflict, and there has been for thousands of years, regarding religion and persecution and problems with it. We have a fun idea that is introduced and it's given to us. Somebody believes in it. Allow them to have that belief. I don't see,
but I will disagree with you there. They could have gone that route.
Okay.
They definitely could have gone that route, and it would have been a lighter, more fun, very kind of not frivolous, but a more whimsical kind of cartoon. And it would have been great because it would have been like, here's this cool new thing that you can now commercialize, and that probably wasn't the original plan, but it's at least like uplifting and somebody in the story gets fulfillment out of it. Whereas this was more true to life, where again, the whole point of faith is just faith and belief, and not you don't give up once things don't go your way, or you don't say, oh, this is proven, this is fact, just because something happens to be maybe coincidental.
And I think for me, the major part of this that is challenging is that cartoons for me is escapism. Mm-hmm. And so I want to be able to have that ability to kind of withdraw a little bit.
Entertainment.
And relax. And be entertained. And so for something that is so very true to life, being an adult in the mid-30s, it felt hard. Like I when this cartoon ended, I had sort of like a deep sigh of like relief. I was like, because at least my life is better than Linus's. Like I walked away from it with the feeling of just like, you know what? I'm A-okay. At least I'm not as bad as Linus right now.
Yeah.
And that was kind of hard. That was hard.
And at the same time, though, like Linus still has the rest of the year where he's kind of accepted with everybody else, whatever his religion or belief or holiday celebrations happen to be. He's in lockstep with everybody else. I'm sure whatever the Christmas special is or Hanukkah special or whatever, I'm sure they're fine. I'm sure that there are no problems. So this just seems like it could also just be like, Linus is kind of a weird kid that wanted to do kind of his own thing and nobody else wanted to do it with him, but he's stuck to his guns anyway. So I don't know. There's a lot you could pull from it. I can't imagine sitting there with my kids and my kids like looking up, kids that don't exist, by the way, and kids looking up and just being like, the fuck just happened? And I'd say, first of all, don't use that language. And second of all, I have no idea. Go listen to our podcast. We'll explain it.
I think the weirdest thing is that I'd be like, I'm really proud of you. For me, I'd be like, I'm really proud of you kids that you knew how to actually curse properly.
Well done.
So congratulations.
It sounds like a New York, like longshoreman.
I'd be like, second of all, let's watch some Batman.
Yeah. Third of all, stop watching Die Hard so many times when I'm at work. What the fuck's wrong with you kids?
I think that I had one final positive takeaway. Okay. So do you think that in terms of the faith and belief that Linus has, I think that we've both presented some interesting arguments and ideas around it. Anything else that we can conclude on before I go to the one positive thing that I think I took away from all of this?
I mean, there literally was a book written on the religious kind of story or parallels that you could draw from this. So if you go to the wiki page, there's literally a book written on the special for the religious parallels to this. But for me, I don't think I have any more at the moment. So what do you got?
Ladies and gentlemen, whoever you are looking for in your life, and I say this wholeheartedly. If you are in a same sex or you are in
heterosexual,
a heterosexual relationship, thank you, Dave. And you are looking for another partner, or if you are in just simply the idea of self-love, find somebody who looks at you the same way that Sally looks at Linus. And I'm not saying this because of how doting she is. We've already established that she has strong opinions about things, and she has her own ideas, and she is an independent woman in this cartoon. All right. I say just the fact that there's this such a beautiful moment where that is one of maybe the few cartoonish moments really in this whole thing, where Sally looks at Linus and you just see those little hearts.
Oh yeah,
come
the
up,
heart balloons
come up above her head. Where she is smitten. She is in love with somebody, and I think that to me was like the one really beautiful takeaway is just look for somebody who you are interested in. You know what? As we've established in this episode and just watching this cartoon, you know what? They may not always have the same beliefs or values that you have. But if you're able to have an honest and responsible and respectful discussion with them, like that type of love, of outlook, of just being able to take somebody in that way, I think that's just so beautiful. To me, I was just like, what a wonderful thing to put in this cartoon. That ultimately, I think you said the word perfectly, was deflate.
Yeah.
Because this cartoon had this fun lore and idea, and it just sort of seemed to deflate over the course of 25 minutes. But just that one key takeaway of just somebody that you might not disagree with, that might believe that there is a great pumpkin that's out there, that you might go out there to try to support them in that sense. And you know what? I think ultimately that's something that Linus really appreciated, was being out there with her, not being alone, and having at least the opportunity to share his vision and his belief with her. It didn't have to come true. In fact, it didn't, but he was able to at least inform her about what was going on. And she was respectful about it, unlike any of the other kids that were in this show.
I mean, she threatened to sue him at the end and demanded restitution, but I think that's just because she was kind of upset too. I will say there was one more kind of sweet thing where Lucy does come out at 4 a.m. And picks Linus up off the ground. He's sitting shivering under his blanket in the pumpkin patch. She does bring him in and kind of put him to bed. So she didn't support him in any way, but she kept him from dying. So that's something for kids in a cartoon.
I don't know if that was as much sweet as it was
not murder.
Never seen more, not murderous. I've never seen more cartoon children with animated frowns that seem to get progressively worse over the course of a show.
Or to the point of like kids, moderate hypothermia. In a pumpkin patch. And I think this show takes place in like Wisconsin too, or like Indiana, somewhere fairly cold.
Yeah.
Yikes. Well, that's our review.
We've got some other reviews though, from other people.
Do you want to do recommendations after these reviews, see if they sway your opinion one way or the other?
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to take the first one from Andy B?
Sure. So Andy B from England starts his review and it says, wonderful. Heads up, 10 out of 10 stars from Andy B. I adore this classic American animation. The Peanuts characters have deservedly found fame well beyond American shores. Indeed, they are legendary, and this animation is, to my mind, the very best. Who could fail to be touched by Linus's faith as he waits for the pumpkin, as he waits in the pumpkin patch? What a character he is. Sensitive, kind, wise beyond his years, long-suffering. Lucy sees that, blanket-hugging, and a believer in the great pumpkin. Charlie Brown's experience of trick-or-treating, how bitter-sweet childhood is, Snoopy's fantasy life, Sally's devotion to Linus, the wonderful Lucy and Linus theme, all add up to a tremendous show. Every bit is excellent as the famous comic strip. Highly recommended.
And we chose that one not only because it was a glowing recommendation, but because they actually mentioned faith. So many of these reviews, and there's a lot of them out there, so many of these reviews just seem to gloss over the fact that, like, this is kind of a faith allegory. You don't have to read it that way. You can just say, it's about Halloween and pumpkins and stuff, and that's neat. But, I mean, if you want to dig a little bit deeper, the fact that we did it on this podcast means that, come on, guys, get your shit together. You should be able to do it if us potato heads can. So,
oh, come on, guys.
But then we have a difference of opinion from Duraflex from Ohio.
Let's do it, Dave.
Oh, God. This 2 out of 10 star review is titled, What Was Charles Schulz, spelled wrong, thinking? I'm sorry, but this has got to be one of the most inane TV cartoons ever made. It's hard to believe that the same people who made A Charlie Brown Christmas ever came up with this. Great Pumpkin is pointless and just plain stupid. There is no Great Pumpkin. When I have to try and explain this nonsensical elements of a cartoon to our 7-year-old who can watch almost anything, including documentaries on the Wright brothers or other historical figures, something's not right. It's unbelievable that this junk is still airing on network TV more than 40 years after it was made. Duraflex.
You stink, Duraflex.
I don't really blame them. I blame them for completely glossing over the reason that there was no Great Pumpkin. They missed that, and I worry about their 7-year-old. Hopefully they'll figure it out by this point. They should be like almost graduating by this point. It's not that bad. It's not a 2 out of 10. That's garbage talk. But do you recommend it? And if not, does it get the dip?
I'll start off with the second question first. Definitely does not get the dip. I'd recommend this because of, again, cultural significance. I feel like this is a classic cartoon that everybody needs to watch at least once.
I'm in the same boat.
And I think because of the conversation that we've been able to have tonight, thematically, I think it deserves that conversation.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's not, for me, it's not an enjoyable cartoon, but the fact that we get to have a conversation of this level afterwards, which we've never had on the show before, I don't think, is worth something.
Usually this is how our show goes. Oh, man, there's a planet called New Texas. And
there's a talking horse called 4040, maybe?
Called 3030.
Damn it, I was so close.
Talking horse called 3030.
I was on both sides of the divide.
Oh, man, that piece of pizza fell onto that kid and he turned into a Corvette. No, like, this is good to have sometimes.
Every once in a while. At the end of our Monster Madness month.
Moments.
So 2 recommendations, not to watch it every year. I don't think you need to do that to yourself. Unless you're a self-flagellist, that's fine. Guys. You can do that. So it doesn't get the dip. So it still exists. Enjoy that. As for our question of the week, last week, we had talked about various toys. So our question was just kind of a generic, what is your favorite toy from childhood? So we had a number of responses for that. Actually, a number of people, since we posted this with our Inhumanoids episode, a number of people actually had these cartoons. Lattice Aguilar actually had the Inhumanoids. Let's see who else had them there. We've got somebody from Nocturna Books from Twitter. Also, they said Inhumanoids was one of their big things, so we think that they had the toys as well. There were some other answers out there. Luis Hall says Beast Wars and Transformers. It was definitely one of his favorites. Jennifer Michelle probably has my favorite response. Power Rangers used to be one of my shits before the whole thing got dragged into the flaming pits of hell. So there you go. Jennifer Michelle, you win this week. We don't have anything to give you except our love and gratitude, but great answer. Great response. The shits. The shits. So that's going to do it for It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and 2016 Monster Madness month. We're going to get back to like crazy, really shallow cartoons next week. I'm looking forward to it so my brain can kind of relax a little bit. But before we do that, buddy, what do you have going on over the next couple of weeks?
Guys, I'm in the final week of my show, POTUS, at Washington Improv Theater, witdc.org.
Which means we're also in like the final week of election season. Thank God.
Yes, thank God. Hey, right after the election, starting on the 9th to the 12th, District Improv Festival in Washington, D.C. Check it out, districtimprov.org. There are free tickets that are still available for certain select shows, and we have workshops that are up there if you are a performer and interested in learning about more. As always, you can find me on Twitter and the Instagrams at Sean Paul Ellis.
Fantastic. As for me,
Dave,
you can find me on the Twitters at Dr. Claw MD. You can also find me on Collider, Nerdist, and DaveTrumbore.com. As for our site, if you're interested in finding out more about it, you can find us on SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. Remember, that's morning with a U. You can also find us on Twitter at MorningTunes. Check out Sean's handiwork on our Instagram page. You guys have been fantastic. You've been Facebook fantastic. We are almost at, actually by the time you're hearing this, we're probably going to be at 3,000 likes. Fingers crossed. That's amazing for us. That's a big milestone. So we have you guys to thank, and just want to make sure that you hear us saying thank you so much for your continued support. We really do appreciate it. You can also listen to our audio podcast each and every week through iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, or check it out through our YouTube page as well. Feel free to subscribe, rate, and review across all those social media sites. If you have a cartoon suggestion or just want to drop us a line, you can do so, SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. So again, that's going to wrap it up for October, buddy, my friend. Oh boy, what do we have starting us off in November?
You heard me talking, or at least joking, about the fact of just sort of escapism and cartoon insanity. Next week, we are going to have a conversation that's probably going to go like this. Chuck Norris, Karate Commandos. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Next week, we are in fact talking Chuck Norris, Karate Commandos.
Man, I'm looking forward to it. We've had this one on the list for a while. We just never quite got around to it, and I haven't watched it. I have no clue what this is going to be. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be like if Chuck Norris just came to your house, punched you in the face. I hope it's going to be that good.
I hope
so, need it. Let's get back to it.
I need it as well.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening this month and always. And we will see you next time on Saturday Morning Cartoons. Take care. And happy Halloween! Happy Halloween!
Hey, everybody. Thanks a lot for listening to Saturday Morning Cartoons. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to transform and roll out.